haven't seen the lineup. I don't know. I assume so, usually do. I know where they're having a fireworks show on Friday night. Yeah. We've had, well, the 4th of July got rained out, and we had one of the concerts was gonna have a fireworks show. It was too hot. So it got canceled.
Yeah.
So this will be like third time we tried to have fireworks.
But I don't know very well.
Yeah, during the day. Oh,
During the Saturdays, yeah.
one or the other.
I know they did the
Shooting River Fest, but you'll be able to see
launch.
them
I
now.
guess
They're gonna move, they're not shooting it normally, they'll shoot it closer to downtown.
Oh, yeah, so I mean, you had it only
Yeah. That's cool. That's
Said it should have had a football field in there.
Yeah.
They got a game.
So, I mean, it's like you could go to single days on Friday or go rotate.
Yeah,
That
there'll
would
be a
be
lot
part
of
of
people
the
at, I
Saturday.
was gonna say, there'll be a lot of people at the football.
I guess there's a DeSoto High
Yeah.
football game.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
They bring people from outside to
I
come
got
and watch.
my kids are, I got one in marching band, so she has to be there for that.
That's next Friday.
Well, humidity gets
Next
better.
Yeah.
I hope the humidity gets
Oh my
better.
gosh, this morning was horrible. They had practice, they have to be there by 7, they have to be on the field by 7 every morning. And they practice all of first, like before school starts until through first block, which is like 2 hours.
Yeah, today was not good. But this whole summer's been bad.
Today's really good.
Yeah, they were supposed to have practice tonight too, but they canceled because the director's both have a meeting.
Oh, well, that was good.
Yeah. I know, so I said to her, I was like, I'm glad you're not gonna have to be out tonight.
I don't know, they need to move football season back some.
If you move it back too much, though,
It
then
is
you get into
fall.
the fall.
But it's football.
Well, that's true.
They need to play in some, right?
I mean,
We'll only get much.
yeah, usually the last, well, no, actually, last home games before any playoffs are like the end of October, I think.
Oh, gosh.
So they have a pretty long season.
Last year, that's the documents that.
Because usually the marching band, their
Okay.
last night typically plays like
Yeah.
around Halloween.
That's when wrestling started up after.
All right, I'll just sign right there.
So the last home game is October 23rd. And then the 30th is when Placer playoffs start.
It's never really safe. Yeah, it is. Right. September, so.
Yep. So September and October they play.
It's just always hot in September.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be.
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk to you. Last fall. Yeah, well, they have one also out at Valley
If Roger's late, do we get to start without him?
No, we don't. We don't.
I'm just curious.
Well, he's really big on being on time, so.
Yeah, he usually doesn't get here too early, but he's usually not too awful late either.
I just asked if you weren't here, if you weren't here when the time started, if we got to start without you.
That'd be great. I'll be happy to leave if you want me to. So I think we're down to 4, right?
Yes.
Charlotte's not gonna be here.
He's gonna be on,
He'll be
I think Charles can be online.
Chad?
Mr. Huggins is ill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Chad.
I think, I don't think we've heard from Chad.
Okay, I was just kidding, maybe we did. Whatever.
And somebody said they might not be.
Well, John said he was, yes.
I guess I was thinking 4 plus 1 on.
Oh, yeah, John's not gonna be
Planning
here.
commission is members, and we have.
And Mark's.
I was just looking at that.
Yeah. Yes. That's great. You didn't think.
No, I
Yes.
didn't.
I don't know if she's
You
the
said
I don't know.
scary email.
There was some,
I can add it to my list of things.
Oh, yeah. joint meeting. Save the day.
I don't see Charles. Yeah, he's not on yet.
Charles said he was not gonna be here. He's gonna try to join remote.
Yeah, because he asked for a link.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for him. Don't see him yet.
Good evening. My clock says 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Martin.
Here.
Milburn.
Here.
Templin.
Here.
Medoc. Schultz. Lane.
Here.
Huggins. Mr. Chairman, it looks like Commissioners Schultz, Medoc, and Huggins are absent today.
Thank you. I think we've got a quorum. Item 3A, general business, approved planning commission agenda. There's an item we probably ought to add to the agenda, which is to discuss setting a joint meeting with council on October 1st at 6 p.m. Brad, I can't remember what this, oh, that's for the strategic planning discussion.
Well, the comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan. We can just maybe add that at the end of new business, 7D. Any objections?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as updated.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda's approved. Item 3B, approve the minutes of the planning commission meeting held on July 28, 2026. Any changes, additions, or corrections to be made in the minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes as presented for July 28th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes have been approved. Item 3C, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Anything to disclose tonight with regard to items on the agenda? Nothing of note. Item D, disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business. I probably should tell you that I did have, was part of a meeting with city staff and dealing with Panasonic before they came back with their revised landscaping plan, which we'll see next month, but we did have a meeting last week to kind of talk about it. So I don't know why I got invited and you didn't, but I apparently did. So
It's okay.
No tears.
you'll get to hear all about it next month.
Great.
Chairman, I'll note that Commissioner Maddock has joined
Oh, there's.
remotely.
Really?
Charles, can you hear us okay? A little sound check here.
Yeah, I got you guys. Thank you. I apologize. It took me a second to get my laptop fired up in the car here.
Sounds good. You're coming through here loud and clear. Thanks.
Charlie, I should probably ask you, do you have anything to disclose in terms of conflicts of interest or outside communications?
Nope, the only communication I had was the emails that Commissioner Lane sent today. That's
Okay.
about it.
Thank you. Item number 4, call to the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Any presentations for informational purposes only. No action will be taken. There's a 4-minute time limit. Anyone like to address the planning commission tonight, please approach the podium and give us your name and address.
Hi, Sarah Vandy Creek. I am a DeSoto resident.
I'm sorry, give us your address.
I have reasons why I don't want to give it, but I will. 8175 Ravenswood Lane.
Thank you.
I can talk about that maybe after the meeting.
Okay.
I had a couple of things that I was thinking about, and I didn't actually write it down tonight because honestly, I'm just weary, you know? It shouldn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be that there are citizens that are spending hours upon hours going through email communications and contracts to try to understand the language of what's going on in our city. And I think about what you talked about with the Panasonic coming back 3 years after their plan was approved for their landscaping and then coming back and saying we need to cut it down by 75%. And that was denied. And yet right afterward, Beal came in with a plan for their landscaping and it was not what you had asked for. And yet you guys still moved forward with it. So it's hard to understand, well, is in 3 years, it's just gonna come back and it's gonna be another one? Well, we can't really do what we said we were gonna do. So I know that there's process at this level, at the local level, there's process at the state level, there's process at the national level that needs to change. And unfortunately, sometimes we just really feel like we're fighting and screaming into the wind. And people wanna say we're just complaining and we're just, you know, it's not that, not really. We're upset, we're frustrated. But tonight I know this rezoning is gonna happen and I don't have a problem with the fact that it's happening. I know that the brownfield that is Astra Enterprises.
You'll have a chance to talk at public hearing on the items on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I just wish that there was more we could do. And I wish there was more explanation. And I wish it didn't feel like I was just being someone angry all the time, or that I was being brushed away when I asked the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission tonight? Okay, I'll close the call to the public. Item 5A, public hearing to consider rezoning from RUR to M1 Sunflower Redevelopment Corporation. Brad?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. You have a request for rezoning out the Sunflower ammunition plant, also known as Astra Development. This is the fourth request that we have had for rezoning to M1. As you know, in early 2022, the City Council annexed the entire property. Approximately 9,000 acres, 2,000 will be dedicated to Johnson County Parks, and that is in the process. Once again, this is the fourth request for rezoning from RUR, which it comes into the county, from the county's designated rural district into the city, and then it ultimately needs to be rezoned to a City of DeSoto zoning category. So this, once again, is a lot of verbiage you've heard before, but went through the process, notified in the public, in the paper, the legal record. Also, a sign was posted on the property, even though it's kind of a dirt road farther down past the water treatment plant, and did sound out a couple of letters, one's Johnson County Parks, and the other was to the Evergy substation folks. So those are the only affected nearby landowners that are within 200 feet of the property. If you could go to the aerial photo, you could see the location of itself. And actually, we did rezone. Actually, there was a small rezone. The substation out there, that's actually the Atlantic substation, is surrounded by this potential rezoning of 1,118 acres. Actually, it's the fifth, if you want to get technical, but that was a pretty small one compared to what's been going on with the Astra development. You could also see I've outlined Kill Creek Park to the east, and then also a lot of the property between Kill Creek Park and this red line will be dedicated to Johnson County Parks. So there really is a very significant, heavily treed buffer line between Kill Creek Park and the edge of this property that's being potentially rezoned. Just going through, this is a very remote part of the Sunflower, the Astra development. In the top left corner of the track, that's where the water treatment plant is. And I don't know how many of you have been out there, but it's a little bit of a journey just to get there. And so we're talking, almost 1,200 acres, a little over 1,100 of property that's south and east of the water treatment plant. Character of the neighborhoods, you can tell, is very remote. There's no residential areas. There is the Atlantic substation. Johnson County Parkland is to the east, and the whole property at this point is within the Astra development site. Compatibility of the proposed zoning, as you can see, there's a lot of M1 all the way around it. Panasonic's to the north. And then we did a couple of rezonings to the west. And then also, once again, the park, and there's the RUR, Rural Ag, which is part of the Astra site today. The property has not been restricted under really the RUR, but it's been through the whole process of cleanup through the Army, and now as these pieces become available and they've reached the clearances from the Army, and they are now eligible to be developed, and that's why we have these potential rezonings. I want to talk a little bit about the utilities, the water treatment plant. There's water available in the very far northwest corner. Sewers are being extended to this area, and then also Astor Parkway is being extended to that northeast corner area as well. So while the whole site does not have access to utilities other than electricity, you can see those extensions are gradually occurring as development happens, and other projects are coming to light in this area. So right now, I do give it a positive. However, once again, the entire tract isn't served. Just in that northeast corner is going to be available in the near future. Environmental impacts, just from simple rezoning, does not really change the environmental impacts. We talk about site plans a lot. In fact, we've got a whole discussion later tonight about some of the potential things that we can do to mitigate and potentially improve our site plan processes tonight. But that's where those environmental impacts with lighting, noise, landscaping, buffering, all those things come up during the site plan process. So this is, once again, as Chairman, you've pointed out many times, is this an appropriate land use change from rural ag to, in this case, from M1 light industrial. As far as going through the rest of the criteria, you've heard a lot of this discussion before. Once again, it's the fourth large rezoning that we've had at this area. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. DeSoto's been looking at redeveloping this site for employment, for property values, for a lot of things that can bring a lot of good things to DeSoto. As before I've mentioned this, it used to be a heavy industrial site making manufacturing for ammunition, things like that, and a light industrial site does not allow those types of uses. So do see this as an overall benefit to the community as the rezoning is stated. So with that, Chairman, I will stand for any questions you may have, but city staff does recommend rezoning the property to M1.
Questions for Brad?
Two questions, Brad. Have you had any calls on this?
No.
Good. Good. The second one, it's such a large tract. Can you bring up that future land use plan? I just want to get my head wrapped around exactly.
Yeah, it's
where
the
this
very
at.
end of the staff report.
Oh,
Page 95, Mike.
So you can see this is all, actually we have a lot heavy.
127th is the south line of the rezoning. You see this blue box here, that's the water treatment plant. So I think the north line is 111th, is that?
That is
that
correct,
right?
Mike.
And it essentially follows this gray, kind of follows this line on the future land use map. The green area was done with intent because we knew that was the area that's going to be transferred to the Parks District. So it's just roughly outlined here.
so that
Designations are heavy industrial, actually here on the future land use plat. North half of this heavy industrial and then light industrial on the south.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have we ever done a rezoning of this size?
Well, the first rezoning was around 1,200 acres, so yes. The very first, in the very north, I guess northeast part.
I think we did 600 when we did
and then-
Panasonic. Was it 1,200?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the Panasonic site was in that 1,200 acres,
Okay, so it
Chairman.
was part of that 1,200.
And then we had two to the west of Astor Parkway that were around 500 or 600 each.
Yeah. So,
Brad, is the applicant asking for all 1,118 acres to be rezoned all in one shot, I guess?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I'm assuming, and maybe I'm implying too much of why Roger's asking what he's asking, but it sounds like the further south you go, the less accessibility there is to utilities and water, so probably not gonna be developed quickly. I guess my question is, why do the whole thing now if we're probably gonna end up, do you think we're gonna have to go back through and look at this again?
Well, I guess that's the applicant's decision, but this property is, we just looked at and the land use plan does show it as M1. And like I said, there's utilities that are on the move to this area, and I just can only assume that that's what their thinking is. I mean, really, ultimately, I've wondered why they just don't do the whole thing at once and just.
well, I mean, there could be a good reason why you don't want to have the whole thing rezoned as M1. For example, if you want to have some sort of commercial facilities or some place that's going to service people that are going to come in and out of here. We're basically creating a whole thing as an M1 and pushing all those services are going to be outside the area of the plant, which may or may not be a great idea in hindsight, especially when we get a road network done. But, I mean, obviously if the applicant isn't thinking about that and they've got some reason they want to do it, I don't know that I can second guess what they want to do, but by the same token, it just struck me as a little odd that we don't have any other uses in this area, especially I'm thinking commercial primarily, that, you know, if you generate a bunch of trips, you're gonna have to push that commercial outside the plant. It might be nice to have some of it serviced inside the plant.
Well, my only response to that is everybody's crystal ball's a
Yep.
little different,
Nope.
so.
Yep, I get it.
And we do have that arterial corridor that was gonna go down Evening Star and then kind of curve over to Edgerton Road is really on the it's farther west from here, which is where some of those off-ramps and potential nodes might be for commercial development.
Okay, other questions for Brad? Okay, matters a public hearing, so at this point, I'd like to open it for the public hearing. Anybody have comments they'd like to address the planning commission? Got your address once already, we're good.
Okay, I'll finish my comment. I didn't exactly plan to speak on this, but I think we are well aware, those of us that are part of the coalition that is working on things, all things DeSoto, we are well aware that the idea is for out there is industrial. Like that's what we keep being told is, oh, it's a brownfield, that's what it has to be. But I agree with you that there are reasons why like you would want to have other services in that area. But the reason I think it's so much is they're putting something else big out there. They want to do a big project. They need a big piece of land. And he, you know, Brad said something about a crystal ball. There are people in this room who absolutely know what that land is for. And they aren't willing, either because they say there's an NDA or it hasn't been this or hasn't been that. But I know from the way that Beal was handled, the contract started with that in negotiations long before any other pieces of it happened. So them telling us that they don't know, or even implying that they maybe don't know, is not true. And we're tired of hearing like, oh, you know, just wait, we'll find out. It's not like exciting like Christmas, you know, it's not like we're gonna get this great gift. And maybe it is. Maybe it's a project that we're like, we would be fully behind that, but we're not even given the option to know. I mean, I understand that this is just a process. This is just to decide if it's rezoning or not zoning. We don't have to know, blah, 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 whatever. But that process maybe needs to change. Maybe that's part of what we're asking is just quit telling us we don't have the right to know until it's already signed, sealed, and delivered. We know that's what happened with Beal. We know it is. They had everything lined out before it even went to Planning Commission. We've seen the records. Don't keep telling us no, because we know things are going on.
Thank you.
I just have a question.
Please approach the podium.
Okay, it's just a question.
That's okay, give us your name and address for the record if you don't
My name
mind.
is Marcia Sossman, 8700 Lynn, here in town. I just want to know why the Planning Commission would approve something if they know what's going in out there that is unwieldy to the city. That's all. And I would hope you would not.
We don't know. As a planning commissioner, I
How
can
can
tell
we-
you, we do
how
not
can-
know
how
what's
can you-
going in there.
Propose something and approve it without knowing.
If I can. So, to address your question, this is a rezoning. It's a determination of is it an appropriate use of this land for industrial purposes. That is the question before us. We have to make that determination not based on what a particular applicant is going to do on that property. The question is this an appropriate place for this type of use? That's what's before us. So it's actually inappropriate for us to make a zoning decision based upon the fact we don't like what that applicant's gonna do. We have to determine whether this land use is appropriate. Now, when they come back and ask for incentives at city council, you bet.
There
That's
you
where you go
go.
talk about that. Where they come back and give us
There's
site
gotta
plan.
be some point in time when
Those
people
kinds
can
of
say, I
things.
mean, I know what we're really thinking in the back of our minds, but we need to know when something is going in that really is really not wanted by the community.
Well, and that's a perfect thing to talk about when you talk about things such as city incentives, or when you talk about getting site plans approved.
I'll
The
be at
question-
those meetings.
The question before us tonight is whether this is an appropriate use for this particular.
Okay. But you don't know what it is you're approving.
No, and in fact, we're not supposed to.
Okay.
That's our job.
They don't. They're, Mr. Bloomberg might.
Tony, did you want to address the planning commission?
No, they don't. It's free tile. It really
Okay.
is, they don't.
Anyone else? With that, I'll close the public hearing. So the matter is then before the planning commission. Thoughts, concerns, issues?
Roger, I'm in the same boat you are. I think it's a little, I mean, it would be nicer if it was smaller chunks of land, but, I'm not the applicant, I don't know what they have in mind, I don't see the largely mapped to the future land use map, and I don't see a reason to say no, although I would like to see a reason, but I can't see one.
Well, that's our opinion. We don't have to. So I agree with Roger. I don't see any, I'm not inclined to approve a large lot like this. The other things that we need around there, so.
The thing to keep in mind here is that you have to review this in light of the golden criteria. And is there a criteria here you disagree with staff on? It's kind of weird because it doesn't really fit that way.
The only thing that I see is, utilities are not available to the entire tract, is the only thing, and I don't know that maybe this is for you to answer, Roger, I don't know that having utilities not be available in such a large tract of land with the absence of a road network is enough for us to say, bring it back in smaller pieces. I don't know that that is for us to decide, but it feels like that would be the more prudent approach.
So your suggestion is the adequacy of required utilities and services to serve the uses?
Well,
That would be the issue?
yeah, because I mean, and again, I'm not disagreeing with staff. I think staff did a nice job of laying it out that utilities are on the way, but they're not there yet. So we're kind of approving this if we do approve it. We're approving it based on the fact that utilities are on the way in order for it to make use of the M1 zoning, which is what is hanging me up a little bit.
As the applicant, can I address some of your questions and concerns?
Would the commission like to hear from the applicant?
Yes?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. And happy to answer any questions you have after I speak to some of the points. Bob Johnson, Polsinelli Law Firm, represents Sunflower Redevelopment. Appreciate the talking points here tonight. With regard to utilities, there are power utilities already there. As you can see with the substation, the transmission lines, those are underway for construction. Panasonic has built sewer that can be connected into this site. So you have the primary utilities with regard to the ones that are the most time intensive and cost intensive run essentially to the site. With regard to the size of the site, I think Brad did a very nice job speaking to why M1 is appropriate at this location. The comp plan obviously calls for it. Obviously this was heavy industrial use, not light industrial use for many, many, many decades. It's always been anticipated that that would be the utilization of the property here. As you saw, as Mike said, M2 was actually anticipated for this in your comp plan. So we're actually going with a less intensive use here through the M1. We do not have deals in place. Not that that's appropriate or ripe for tonight, as you said, Chair. But regardless, I say that only because these sites shouldn't be broken into smaller chunks so as to go to the market, go out and attract uses. You're going to have disjointed parcels in our purview. If you do smaller chunks, as you have seen with other projects we've moved forward with, those do take scope and scale for the land, especially with the substation there. You would need to design around that. So it doesn't make sense from our perspective. That would be harmful in our process. It would just take more time, and I think we'd be back to you again with the same or maybe a larger request, because as Brad mentioned, we have considered just rezoning almost the entirety of the site M1 at one time. We've actually tried to break that into smaller chunks. That's why we've been through 4 so far. They are large tracts, absolutely, but this is 9,000 acres. That's what this is going to be. So understood on the points. It does, the scope sometimes seems larger than other properties around the city, or what we're used to in seeing commercial development. But in the types of projects we're considering, the types of uses within M1, this is appropriate. This is what's needed for us to execute on the project. I think we have shown we are a professional master developer out here, and that this request is in line with that, and happy to answer any further questions on the topic.
Thanks, Bob. And so as a professional master developer, is it your master developed plan that there will be no other use but industrial on this site?
No, I can't say that. I can't say that.
That's what we're curious about.
Yeah,
Because we're going to rezone the whole thing as industrial. What are you thinking about?
Sorry, I should be more nuanced. On this particular site, no. I would not anticipate there is other use besides M1. Within the entirety of Astra Enterprise Park, there is a possibility there could be other uses up north, as Brad mentioned. We've
already rezoned M1.
Not the entirety of the northern property. If we come through with an M1, though, please don't hold that against me, because I do think that certainly this will be.
If the answer is the whole thing's
Yeah.
going to develop as industrial, then that's your answer.
It very well may, very well may. I just don't know exactly, but if there are commercial uses, I think they would be up north. It'd be very surprising that they'd be down the south, given that K10 is so much farther north here. I wouldn't anticipate that people will access restaurants down this far south, for example.
Unless you can
housing.
15th Street across, or one of the other streets that we already got kind of identified as possibly going across this tract.
I don't think that's likely to happen. Certainly within this particular tract, we've designated this only for M1 uses. I wouldn't anticipate we'll ever change this to something other than M1. And so if we broke it into smaller tracts, I don't think we're
No, I
coming
get it.
forward with a commercial tract.
Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I would also looking through the golden criteria. I don't know if there's actually a section in there about lot sizes, so I'd be, I would have,
Doesn't fit.
yeah, I would have a hard time not recommending approval based on that, number one. The utilities, I am kind of on the fence on that. I do understand, the area. It takes time to get utilities throughout the entire tract that they're trying to rezone. So, I understand that. Takes time, but this area, this land use, in my opinion, is appropriate for this area. I mean, it's been on the future land use plan, like we discussed. It is shown M2 on the northern half. They're essentially requesting a downzoning from the future land use plan. So, based on my review and staff's professional opinion, I would incline to recommend approval.
Charlie, if I can address the utility issue, because I don't think that's anything we can hang our hat on. And the reason I say that, I can think of dozens of rezonings we've been asked to consider where the utilities don't exist right now, but they're consistent with our overall plan and are to be provided. If we were to deny zoning based on having existing utilities to the site and on the street network and everything else, I don't know that we'd ever get anything approved. I mean, I just think that's just kind of the nature of this, is you have to see whether it fits within the plan. And this, I think, does. But the fact that it doesn't have it presently is probably not a reasonable basis for us to disagree with staff's analysis that found it as positive. So I think that's probably not it. My comments are just largely directed to Bob, and it's like, hey, I appreciate the fact this is an opportunity for an industrial development, but as master developers, I would expect there to be some sort of a plan for what these people are gonna do that work there. And we're not using any of the plant for that. It does trouble me that we're just kind of given the imprimatur that says, we're gonna create a giant industrial site here, and that's all it's gonna be, and all the neighbors around it have to figure out how to service the people that are coming in and out of it. It just troubles me. So it's, I suppose, a personal disappointment that we're not thinking about this as from a planning perspective, other than just simply giving a stamp of imprimatur that the whole thing is industrial. Feels like we're not doing our job by thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm coming from too, Roger. There's just a little bit of sticker shock here for me. That's such a big piece of land to have so little detail. And obviously, I understand that you've got to develop it and things need to come in as they come in, and it might be built to suit type situations where you're not exactly sure what prospective buyers are going to be looking for. But at the same time, I would expect at least some sort of, even if you say a certain percent of the land is going to be utilized for X, Y, and Z, I think that's where I'm landing, which is why I was trying to think about, from a utility perspective, what does that look like? But again, we don't have crystal balls, we're not forecasting. I think it's just a big piece of land to say, I don't actually have a problem with the future use of that land as that. I just would like to see a little bit more thought put into it before we stamp it and say, yeah, let's go.
That said, I don't think we can deny it on that basis. I think that we can hopefully share the comments with the developer. That sure be nice to know if you're gonna do something other than just sell it all off for warehouse space and industrial. And hopefully there'll be some sort of an accommodation that you'll recognize that as you put people out there, they're gonna need services and not just dump that on the rest of the town. So, to me, I would love to see something like that, but I don't think that's a basis for me to vote for denial. Other comments, concerns, arguments? Ready to fight? You wanna- Motions?
Based on staff's professional opinion, following the golden criteria, I recommend approval of the rezoning request from RUR to M1 for the 1,118 acres at the corner of Astor Parkway and 111th Street.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Maddock,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to new business. Consider site plan revision for fencing at Flint Commerce Center.
All right, thank you, Chairman. This is coming back to for our planning commission approval is because the south half of the Flint Commerce Center is being leased by Panasonic. They actually want to do some sort of a foreign trade zone activity. They actually have one they're also going to be setting up at the plant itself. And because of that, they need fencing, more of a security type fence. They initially came to staff about wanting to get a barbed wire fence, and we've talked about that and said, no, we're not going to recommend to the planning commission to approve barbed wire on a very public corner within the community. So they went back to the drawing board and came back with no barbed wire, no razor wire. And then on the south side is going to be 4-foot ornamental, but they will have 2 guard shacks on either side of the building for inbound and outbound traffic to regulate that. And then also on the east side of the building will be 6-foot ornamental fencing, and it will have kind of little, I don't know, spikes, if you will, little kind of I always kind of like the New Orleans Saints helmets, kind of pokey things.
Fleur de lis.
So they do have security built into the ornamental fencing, and then on the north side, they did the sections that tie back into the building on the north. You can kind of see it. If you zoom in maybe a little bit, Mike, you can see it a little bit better. But on those sections, they had requested to have black barbed wire, black chain link fence, no barbed wire on the top, but they will. The chain link will go up a little bit above the bars, so it's not something somebody can easily grab onto. They'll still have a little bit of effort to scale that portion of the fence. The reason also it's coming back to my commission is because on the original site plan, there was no fencing proposed. So this is something that needed to be approved by the planning commission before a fencing permit could be issued. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them as best possible.
Brad, is the applicant there for this one?
Yes, all right, yeah.
Would you like to hear from the applicant?
I would like to hear from the applicant. I'm curious,
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The reason why I ask is FTZ is foreign trade zone. Basically, you're bringing in stuff that hasn't cleared customs yet, and then you're storing it, and there's some tariff advantages to doing it that way. And the reason I'm asking is because I would actually agree with the applicant. I know from an aesthetic perspective, we're probably not thrilled about barbed wire, but I wonder is that actually legal to be FTZ without the barbed wire?
Oh, well, I would have to defer.
Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Powell Minnis. I'm an architect with Davidson Architecture and Engineering, 4301 Indian Creek Parkway, Overland Park, Kansas. We are the architect and engineer for the project. So, Mr. Is it Murdoch? I'm sorry, Maddox, excuse me. I really can't speak to the technical pieces of the foreign trade zone. What we've done is Panasonic came to us with some certain criteria, and that was, Brad indicated, Mr. Weisenberger indicated that they did want like a 6 or 8 foot fence with some barbed wire, with some protection, security. I think what they've done, they've gone back and they've talked themselves, and they came back to with Brad's advice to me, and then me talking back with Panasonic saying we need to really think about that a little bit more to get approval of some kind of fencing. So yes.
I'm just kind of giving some advice here.
Yeah.
I think U.S. Customs is going to have to inspect and clear that site to be FTZ certified. I would, if you haven't run it by them yet, I would, to make sure they're not going to kick it back at you and say that fence does not meet. Because you're basically saying that piece of land is not U.S. soil, and it's outside of customs requirements and whatnot. So you can literally take freight right off of a boat that came from another country, stick it on a rail, stick it right into that warehouse, and have it not be inspected at all from a customs perspective. And I looked into this a few years ago because of all of the tariff stuff going on, but the FTZ approved zones are very expensive, and they have very specific criteria around security requirements because the freight inside the warehouses haven't cleared customs.
Okay. To just say one thing further to the commissioner is Panasonic may not have disclosed everything to me that it is a foreign trade zone. I believe that's what I believe that's their indication. That's what they're planning.
I'm happy to approve whatever we're okay with. I'm just saying that I would hate for us to approve it and then you guys get U.S. Customs and say, yeah, good try, that's not enough. So I'm just, I work in logistics, and I'm just sharing a little bit of insider knowledge here.
Sure, I appreciate that. Again, I think what we brought to the Director of Planning has been approved by Panasonic. So I can only state that, and if there is something that is beyond my knowledge, I can't respond to. But I do appreciate your comments. I think Brad described the fencing pretty accurately. The guardhouses will be staffed 24/7, and I believe that's why part of the reason why they were allowed they kind of rescinded their own requirement for having high fences with barbed wire. Because they were going to staff that 24, and that may be the case 24/7. So, any other questions? I'm glad to answer for the commission.
I guess one question I have.
Yeah.
Are those northern gates, are those just exit only?
The northern gate, correct. Those would be just for, more than likely, just for emergency use. They're sliding gates. They'll have a Knox box. We would plan to have like a Knox box on them and coordinate with the fire department, so they can gain access to that. Also with the gates below as well, the main gates. You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, I for one applaud city staff for sticking to your guns that we really don't need barbed wire fencing in our city. So thank you. I appreciate that. What else we got? Comments, concerns? I mean, I think that the ornamental fence, the decorative 6-foot fence is reasonable to me. I don't think it's going to necessarily detract from the overall. And the guardhouse. I don't know that we have any specific criteria for guardhouses.
No, that I found in the city code.
It's going to look a lot like a guardhouse.
Yes, exactly.
I agree with staff's review.
Motions? Further conversation?
Make a motion we approve the site plan as presented for agenda item 7A.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Martin,
Yes.
Melbourne,
Yes.
Maddock,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Templin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Takes us to item 7B, discuss potential text amendment regarding Article 8 landscaping standards. Brad.
All right, thank you, Chairman. You know, the Commissioner Bradley, or Councilmember Bradley, brought up landscaping standards and noise, and he deferred, or wanted the Planning Commission to look into, potentially revise and then evaluate our current standards. And so these are both fairly complicated issues. Now, my opinion after looking at our landscaping screening and buffering section was there were a few holes, and I came up with a couple of examples of some areas that probably could have been handled a little bit better. Especially the first one was the Eagle Creek subdivision, which was an entirely treed tract of land, and then ultimately went through the process, and there's a drainage way that needed to be cleared out. We have a drainage easement that needs to be improved. So there's a lot of things that had happened. You have to install roads, utilities. So there was a lot of things that went into this, but you can see a lot of that property on page 15 of the staff report was clear cut. It was removed. Now, once again, appropriate erosion control measures were put in place. Property was reseeded at some point soon thereafter to also help with the erosion control. But then, roads go in, and then ultimately single-family homes were approved in R1 zoning district. You can see on the next page, the road network, it's just a couple of cul-de-sacs that tie into Primrose Street. But there was some concern that was raised by the residents along the drainage way that they were kind of just, used to having essentially a forest in their backyard, and then all of a sudden it was not. And there was some concern raised. There were some calls made to KDHE. But once again, followed all the procedures, erosion control was in, appropriately placed, the reasons for clearing the property in that manner were following our criteria. And I also went to the effort to put together a little bit of a, how much of that property was removed. Because one thing the Councilmember Bradley had in his proposal was to put some more stricter percentages on how much landscape can be removed. And we don't have anything that's hard and fast in our code that says, if you take out 25%, you gotta put back 25% somewhere. But we do talk about, designing with the land, making sure that large trees are preserved and as best possible. So those best management practices are part of what we do look at when things like this come into play. But really, there aren't too many tracks within DeSoto that were like this one. Most of them have been more like the Beal site, which was the other example that I put together. And it really just had one drainage way. If you can go to page 18 of the, 17 of the staff report, it shows really that area was farm ground. So there was very few trees in there, and both developments cleared about half the trees out. And as I recall, the percentage that Councilmember Bradley had was around 20% is what he was thinking ought to be preserved to some degree. But really, both these developments would have met that type of criteria. So I also wanted to bring up Council, or Planning Commissioner Lane sent a email to me, and then I ended up forwarding it. Our Edgar's got the documents we can pull up on the screen, but I also printed off hard copies. So he went to a great length of really looking at what other communities had done and breaking down what DeSoto does versus what could be done as far as, going to a greater level, a much greater level than what we're accustomed to. And really, I haven't asked any of my peers in the other communities around Johnson County. I did with the lighting standards. So I would probably reach out to them again to see if they, any of the other communities in Johnson County have such a deliberative and intense or more intense landscaping buffering plan than what we have currently in DeSoto. So I guess with that, I made some suggestions that I thought were pretty reasonable based on what I know about the other communities in Johnson County and the things that we've been able to accomplish here in DeSoto. So I'm not, it's one of those things nobody's, other than this one instance where we had the issue at the Eagle Creek subdivision, I haven't had anybody approach me or talk to me about, why are we cutting down all these trees or this and the other. There's a lot of trees in DeSoto. We have a lot of healthy, mature trees as well. And then even in the subdivision, the Eagle Creek subdivision, property owners will go back and plant trees. So yes, there was that shock value of when the forested area gets cleared, but through time and homeowner improvements, plus our street tree program that we do require, there will be a lot of that canopy restored to some extent. So with that, this is going to, evolve into I think a bigger process. And I think, Mike, you had some thoughts on maybe developing some committees to really maybe focus it in a little bit more than just, in the past. We spent 3 meetings talking about the Playhouse. Remember that? So these are pretty significant changes that will probably take more than just, a recommendation from myself and a couple meetings, and then we go on to a recommendation of the city council.
Yeah, Chairman, if I could, there's a number of these issues that are currently being contemplated at the council's direction. So we have the 2 that came to hear, the landscaping one and then the lighting one. We also talked about. There's also a desire to look at our regulations about private wells. We're looking at regulations relating to noise from large-scale industrial users. some incentive negotiations, and some others. There's 8 of these kind of policy or city code or zoning categories that the council has directed us to look at. And so the last council meeting last week, there was a recognition that it's going to take probably some committee work, sort of a structured approach to these, rather than just say, here's a topic, here's some suggestions, here's some others. So what I have planned to do in the council meeting, at the next council meeting, which will be on September 3rd, the council's asked me to come back with some sort of a framework for considering all 8 of these things. And what I'm going to suggest is that we form a number of committees, at least 3, maybe more, to look at these things. And typically what we do is, first of all, get volunteers for the committees, and we decide on the structure, who's that, planning commission, city council, staff, stakeholders, community advocates, all these. Then we do, fact finding. We go and see what other communities are doing, and bring in experts if we need to. We know we're selecting a noise expert for that one currently. Then after that, the committee kind of does its work and formulates some policy drafts, and then comes either to the planning commission or the council. So it will be a several month process, and some of these we could maybe knock off pretty quickly. Maybe this landscaping one is one of those, maybe it's not. But others might take a bit longer. We've already kind of articulated the time frame specifically for the noise regulation, because it was kind of the first one that got brought up. Like at 8 or 9 or maybe even 10 to 12 month process to work through. And typically with some of these things, unless it's just a tweak to something, it takes 6 months or a year to work through that. So with that as background, I don't intend, I think we can certainly have more robust discussion on this, or even at the lighting ones, the next agenda item, but that's what I'll be recommending. And the council was open and receptive, and they directed me to do that. So that's kind of the background of that. There are several of these initiatives. Certainly planning commission representation would be wanted, certainly for this item, certainly anything that would impact zoning regulations, that's our purview here. So, and not to say that planning commission won't be involved in all of them, depending on how those committees line out. So just offer that as background.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
So,
Oh, yeah, I was about to say Commissioner Milburn also put together a brief example on some of his work in Kansas City, Missouri.
Well, yeah, actually I did it on both. When I saw the agenda come through and Eagle Creek came up, I kind of had a little personal.
a little bristle.
So I kind of took the aerials that Brad provided, and I kind of put some numbers to it, and I think you might have all of these on your desk here. I'll just go through this real briefly. I won't detail this, but I do want to show that, the stream buffers that we didn't get into on the west side. I think you might have mentioned that we got in there and tore the trees up, but we didn't. So we kept the stream buffers on the west side, and then the developer did a good job keeping trees on the east and west side for buffering. So essentially, by using the DeSoto code, you get credit for keeping existing vegetation. So this afternoon at lunch, I went out and counted the trees and measured them, and I just wanted to see how we compared if we followed City DeSoto code. So if you take into account all these trees, these are plus or minus, and I, measured the tree caliper, the size of the tree, and then got the quantity of each of the calipers, we are way over the requirement for the landscaping. So essentially, if we follow the code without doing any credits, follow essentially we put in 1,400 feet of road, and every 1,400 feet you need every 40 linear feet you need a tree. Then you have to provide buffering around the subdivision. So if we follow the code on that, we would need essentially 67 trees. That's all we'd need. Now, add up all the trees that the developer retained, we got up to roughly 200 some trees that were retained. So if we follow the code, we actually wouldn't have needed to plant any street trees. So we provided enough buffering within his development to buffer from the adjacent residential developments.
But that also depends on our developer as well,
It does.
correct?
Well, it does. I'm not saying it doesn't.
Yeah,
But-
so, I mean, this is great, I mean, that's what I wanna see is more, rather than just trying to meet the minimum requirements, and who's gonna go out and monitor, that was one of my questions too. Who's gonna go out and monitor those trees to see what size they are and everything?
So then,
Yeah,
Well, Charlie, I'm there trying to get on.
Maybe. Let me pull it back. I know you're there.
well,
There we are.
I was, but I wasn't sure if Justin, Commissioner Milburn was done, I was gonna let him finish, because there was one thing in the red line that I thought would be helpful.
so just one other thing too, Commissioner Maddock. I looked at KCMO, we did a lot of work in Kansas City, Missouri. If you take this exact same development and apply the same tree removal in KCMO, so essentially KCMO is a little bit different. They allow you to mitigate. So you can go out there and take as many trees down as you want, but you have to mitigate, you have to plant trees in other spots on the development. So essentially, if you still follow those same guidelines, what the developer did on Eagle Creek, you would still be in excess of the requirement.
So, Commissioner Milburn, obviously, we all think very highly of your work, so we won't question that. But the thing that stood out to me, Brad, and I'll be honest, I cheated a little bit, and I ran this through the AI tool, and I talked back and forth at it. But the thing that I saw and that we landed on was, if we're not surveying how many trees and large pieces of vegetation that are on the property ahead of time, how are we measuring what they're leaving? So, like, my question is, should we throw in the red line like some sort of pre-planned survey that says there's this many large trees, this many increases, this many small trees, whatever, and then you can start to measure what percentage you allowed to remove or whatever, because I don't know how, that's my thought at least, and maybe I'm missing something, but that was my feedback.
Well, if I could, Commissioner, that's what would be part of a site plan submittal now. We would have to, rather than just looking at the canopy and that kind of stuff, we would require from the applicant to do a tree survey and say, okay, you've got X many of these size of trees, and crunch those numbers like Commissioner Milburn did, and actually put them on a drawing so we can see how that works. Because like I said, I've just looked at, basically canopy areas and, wasn't gonna go marching through, before the trees were removed. But part of the thing also with the people that complained was, unfortunately, they were at the portion where there was more trees cleared closer to their property. So there's a fairly thick area of trees farther to the south that remained. If you recall, there's a little trail, a little concrete path that goes back there, and the ones up by the detention ponds remained. And the ones that, as the trail narrows and the property narrows, those trees got removed, and then all of a sudden their view was exposed. And so they are the ones that were upset. The other folks I didn't hear a peep from. So there's sort of site issues that do come into play. And it's hard to judge all those things. But yeah, that's kind of the direction that this would start to take us, is we would have to require a tree canopy survey. And
So if the developer chose to do that, to take credit for the trees that he was going to preserve, that would have to be done.
yes.
Then I think we also need to watch if we start applying minimum percentages to prevent, like, say we need to keep 20%. So some of these sites, that 20% that you need to remove those trees, that's where you need to put your detention basin, you need to do other things. So then we're really hamstringing certain sites. If we need to do something, I think it's kind of like KCMO does, It might have to be a mitigation.
Well, I think also the other concern is, like you pointed out, is, you know, Joe Roy could have removed more trees and still stayed within the criteria. And then all of a sudden, they're gonna say, well, we're following your rules and had the opportunity to take out more.
So essentially, if you followed DeSoto code and not taking into account the credits, you could have put 30 trees around that whole development for buffer. And he could have had an argument that since he's butting up to residential, he doesn't need buffer.
Well, we need to get that.
Yeah,
tightened
now
up.
I will point out, because there's the detention pond, we do have the standards for our creek setbacks, which is why I put in there
The 25
the
foot.
25-foot streamway corridor. But nonetheless, you're right. If it were a flat piece of ground, we could have just probably taken out 75% of those trees and still remained within our criteria.
And,
One
you
of
know,
the things I've heard over and over is we don't want to lose our small town feel. And I know, Justin, that you went out and measured that, and our developer went above and beyond what was required. But somebody new that is not part of this community may not feel that same way.
oh yeah, I don't understand.
And I would like to keep an area for our wildlife and the rural, so let's not just go by the standards of what somebody else has. Let's develop our own, but still make it usable for builders so that they're not gonna say, well, they got too many requirements. But let's enhance what we've got and not get rid of everything we've got just because it's written down that that's what it's supposed to be. You know, I'm one of those people that would be very upset if somebody came and ripped out all my trees. We've planted, I don't know how many trees on our property, so, but I happen to be one of those people that enjoys nature and enjoys trees, and you won't hear me complain about it until we have to clean up the leaves. You know, yeah.
You know, I'm not for tearing down every single tree. I just,
I
when
know
I
you're
saw the
not, but I
project
just
coming
don't
through.
want to lessen it so that we can have a fewer amount. I understand the mitigation and that kind of makes sense to me as well, but I don't ever want to reduce the amount of vegetation and trees that we've got. I just think that's something that we need to maintain, and I don't want to be another Lenexa or Overland Park. They've got all their attributes, that's wonderful, but we want to keep ours. We don't want to give up everything we've got that we've had for years just because we've got new people that want to come in and build here. That's my feelings.
Yeah, well, I guess the one thing also I'd say about this situation was, like I pointed out, it was that as the drainage area narrows, that they tore out those trees, but the owner, he didn't go on anybody's property. He stopped well short because there's that drainage easement, but he did clear right up to allow for clearing the drainage way and making it and improving it. And then once again, it was all reseeded. It does look, I mean, it's much improved from what it was, but once again, there was that shock of, oh my gosh, what just happened here, because it goes from day and night. I mean, all of a sudden it was forested to cleared in, 24 hours.
Well, I take some comfort in the idea that we actually have 12 pages of regulations on this. And of the 12 pages of regulations in Brad's analysis, he spotted a couple of gaps and a few things that would be highlighted, but it's not like we don't have rules. And I take comfort in Justin's computation that says that we have rules and people generally comply with them, and if they comply, they even have more flexibility and don't have to comply as fully as perhaps they did in Eagle Creek. Great, that's fine. If you're talking about taking 9 months to a year, I have comfort in the fact we have pretty decent regs to start with. And I don't mind taking the time. And I think it's the right thing to do because I will tell you, my experience with these regulations that we have is that they either encourage or discourage building, development. And if the idea is we want to retain a small town feel and discourage development, we've had plenty of regs in the past where we've done that. And I don't know that's necessarily the right thing to do if on the other hand we want to have affordable housing and have places for our kids to be able to find a home for them. So if we don't want to create a community where you can only build a $600,000 house, then we have these things that we're talking about doing, the 50-foot fronts and all the other kinds of stuff we're talking about. These need to jive in order to make it work. So I'm in favor of taking the time to look at it, and I don't feel like we're unguarded while we look. I think we have rules. If there's specific tweaks that you think we need to address to buy more time so we can actually take a look at it from the perspective of, are we destroying the development opportunity, then let's take a look at those tweaks, but I'm not hearing you say that either.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I might bring up is, that concerns me more is because we don't, if you just go and get a grading permit, you can clear your property with no plan, no anything. And the only time that's really happened, and once again, I'm not picking on Travis Hicks, but he bought that property across the street from Merck and was farm ground, but it had a very thicket of trees, and maybe for marketing process reasons, he cleared them all out. Then Merck bought it, planted a bunch of trees, and they're letting it grow back wild. So, that's the other thing I was thinking about. Maybe if you're gonna do something, you need to have an approved site plan or a preliminary plat before you start sending in the bulldozers.
That's a solid suggestion. If you want to propose some kind of a text amendment, that we ought to consider that. I think that helps buy us more time to look at all these other things. I would agree with that. I mean, anything like that you think is a significant need that needs to be addressed, great. And then I think following Mike's idea of having people look at it so we don't make silly decisions and make things worse just because we like the copy that we got off the internet. I mean, I think we need to look at it with what works for us. My 2 cents. Any further discussion on this?
I like it, sounds good.
So I gather we're gonna, at some point, create a committee, and in the meantime, if there's something that's critical we need to pay attention to, bring us a text amendment.
Okay.
Yeah,
That sound right?
that's reasonable, sure.
Sounds good.
Justin, you completely disagree with me.
Just is like,
Well,
no. Justin, I appreciate you taking the time to go out and do that, though.
well, no, I mean, it was kind of personal, but
I get it, but I mean, it's proved a point too, so, and if we do have developers that wanna come in and do
Well, I
the
know.
right thing and
And-
keep the best we can, keep it preserved.
and
so.
I had that exact same question from my staff today at 4 o'clock. We have those developers that do that.
Yep.
It's good. That's what we want.
And how do we stop that?
Okay, we ready to move on to item 7C? Discuss potential text amendment for lighting standards.
All right, well, I think all the things that Mike said are certainly withstanding on, especially this one. Initially came up as a dark skies ordinance. If you look at the dark skies group, I mean, there's some really challenging things that would need to be done as far as even dimming streetlights at a certain amount of time and coming up with programs for, how lights are installed, and then requiring residents to have their front porch lights evaluated and all these things. It's like, that might be a bit much. So I did once again reach out to colleagues in Johnson County, and probably the most two, I guess, robust lighting communities were Lenexa and Overland Park. Go figure. So I included those in your packet, and you can see that Overland Park has quite a few they've got a whole section on how streetlights work and how they're designed around roundabouts and all sorts of issues along those lines. And I think one of those things, that's where you think, I hear people say this to me fairly regular, we don't want to be Overland Park, we don't want to be Lenexa, but, we want to have, our own unique way of doing things, still keep our small town values. But once you start going down, in my mind, this sort of slippery slope of lots of regulations, then you get more, more oversight. And I don't know that jives with small town values either. So I think the idea of, the committee where we can come up with these things, because I look at what we have and I feel comfortable that it works. You can go out to areas in DeSoto at night. Now I've asked Drew, or the codes person, we don't even have a light monitor. Nobody's complained except for the reference I made in the staff report about somebody who had a motion sensor light and it was misdirected and shining in somebody's bedroom. So that's small town stuff, and yeah, sure, we'll make a call and send a letter saying, hey, can you move your light? Even though there's, I mean, no, nothing on the books that says they have to. But, so that's kind of, you know, I mean, this sort of philosophical discussion that I think we do need to have. But where do we want to, you know, at some point you have to draw a line and say, what do we want to do? There are some things that we don't talk about with glare. Once again, you know, if that person that had that spotlight shining in that person's bedroom wanted to keep it there, we'd say, sorry, it's not against the city rules. Go talk to your neighbor, you know? And if it doesn't work, maybe you got to go to district court. I don't know, but
Maybe the light gets removed altogether.
but you can see Overland Park has about 50 pages of regulations for lighting standards.
My copy, it's 64 pages.
Okay, well, I was just kind of guessing after going through this, but Lenexa had a fairly robust section either. They didn't really get into streetlights though, but they just talked mostly about, you know, gas stations and auto dealerships and what kind of lighting they like to have. And so, but one thing that just, once again, now that I'm in this, I mean, I'm driving, I'm looking at parking lots. You go to Walmart and like, well, I'm going to step out off the curb and see where the edge of the light goes on the parking lot. And they do drop off fairly fast. If you look at the light, yeah, they got the baffles on them and all that stuff, which are what we do require those things. So I think to your point, Chairman, we do have protections in place and nobody's been complaining about these, our standards being too lax or something along those lines. But nonetheless, is it time for us to take a harder look and come up with standards? Because, you know, I guess the one complaint wasn't really a complaint, but people noticed out of Panasonic, it was really bright out there. But that was construction lighting in there. We're going 24/7 and our code allows that type of use, knowing that those lights will go away eventually when they are fully operational. So there really wasn't any actionable item for us to do out there other than, you know, okay, well, it still falls within. They gave us a site plan, they gave us a lighting plan for their parking lot, for their ultimate condition, and it fell within our requirements. And ultimately, the planning commission approved that.
Well, I certainly appreciate the summary that you gave. I think that's very helpful, as opposed to trying to dive through these.
I'm not a 75-page reader on this.
I get it.
This was much easier. But I agree, there's things that we need to look at, but I also think, you know, there's some stuff that we've already got into place, but since we've got so much development coming in, you know, now's the time to look at that. And if we want to set a new standard as far as making sure that we're the best neighbor that we can be on these decisions, I think it's kind of up to us to look at some of those things.
Brad, I cheated again and ran, I asked AI to compare OPs and Lenexa and ours. Came back with 3 things. I'll just read them to you guys to see if anything's, we only require a site or a lighting photometric plan when we deem it as necessary. Lenexa and Overland Park require with every site plan. I thought that was interesting. Apparently our light poles are 35 foot. Overland Park are 33 and Lenexa 32. Don't know if we care that our light poles are 3 foot taller. And then it says that DeSoto mandates lighting, Lenexa explicitly doesn't, meaning we require a light every 20 parking spaces, whereas I guess some of the other cities don't, which again, if we're going to do a deep dive into this at a committee level, then I think that that's the right call. But I thought it was interesting, those 3 call-outs that were different between us and the other 2 cities that you cited in there.
Yeah, I will say this, Commissioner, that when we have a commercial development or multifamily, I mean, Joe's always said lighting plan. So it's not like we've ever skipped it or missed it. It's always been part of something that, and while it's technically optional within our code, it's something that staff requires as part of the submittal. Light poles, once again, that's, I don't know if 2 or 3 feet's gonna make a bit of difference. But I think that's probably a pretty simple fix, and we certainly could go down that road, but overall, I do think the standards we adopted are working. And I don't
Yeah, I would agree.
think we need to go in and, knock on people's doors at night and say your porch light's too bright. Some things like that.
We can't even give a ticket if you're parking on the grass. What do you say? What?
What is grass?
Give me the definition.
Alright. So, maybe leave it the same way. If there's something that's immediate, bring it to us. If you think there's something we need to address right now to make sure we have a gap addressed in the interim while we take the time to look at the overall plan. Other than that, follow Mike's suggestion of putting together some sort of a group to look at these things. And I think that's responsive to what we've been asked to do.
I agree.
I mean, honestly, think of all the ones that we have, the lighting one is the cleanest, like, it's fine. I know we talked about those differences in the lights. We still go back to 0-foot candles at the
Right.
property line when you do
Right.
multifamily commercials, so when they run those programs, they put a hypothetical light at 35 feet and make sure it's 0-foot candles at the property line, so in my opinion, that's not that big a deal, but I drove around last night, looked at Panasonic, doing my own research on this. And I'll tell you what, the north side of Panasonic, where there's no construction equipment, they have the lights shining down. I mean, it's unbelievable how big that building is, and there's no trespass on the north side of Panasonic. Now you go to the other side where the construction equipment is.
Yeah, it's a construction issue for them.
That's an issue that, I mean, maybe something needs to be addressed for the construction side of things, but all the other commercial developments, multifamily stuff, you can see, you're driving down the road, you can see the zero light at the curb. I mean, just driving down the road, you can see that. Now, granted, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you look into the development, you're gonna see light, but of all the one, I mean, I hate to say, I mean, if you start bringing in experts reviewing this stuff, I mean, that's gonna be a cost to the city.
Yeah.
So do we wanna pay experts when we ultimately, this stuff can be tweaked on all this stuff, but ultimately that's a cost to the citizens as well, to bring in experts to refine
Tell
this
you
stuff.
what it is, right. I think we should probably be able just to do it ourselves, just looking at these things, or the committees can with some recommendations.
Certainly with these two. The noise, on the other hand, I don't know that anybody's qualified to deal with that. We gotta get some advice on it.
Right. He's an expert at that. I agree.
But, I mean, I know we get all these committees, but ultimately that's still a cost. Sure, take time to do it.
Well,
If it's the will of the council, it's the will of the council.
no comment.
Okay. Any further discussion on that item?
I'm done with it.
Thank you, Brad. So, we did add item 7D, which is to discuss setting a joint meeting with council to talk about the comprehensive plan. And the proposed date was October 1st at 6:00 PM. Is that something that you guys are willing to do?
October 1st. That's the city council night, so I guess we're doing it, what?
Yeah, we'll do it at 6:00 before the council meeting. And the council meeting will get bumped to 7:30.
If that's the will of the council.
Well, the will of the commission is as long as they bring pizza or something. That's different.
Yeah, dinner time, yes. I'm good with it.
Anybody else?
Austin says
I
he
think
is, right?
October 1 sounds okay.
I'm not making a motion.
Well, I don't know that we need a motion to do it. I think we just need to get feedback that says we can do it on the 1st.
Well, I don't know, do we need a motion? I mean, because we have to notice this meeting change. It's a special meeting, so I don't know.
Yeah,
You want to do a
Well,
motion?
we've called a special meeting in the
maybe
past.
to be
we've had-
safe, of course, we have the September meeting, we could make the motion if we need
Yeah.
to.
Well, we're here, we might as well do it now.
If you wish, yeah, make a motion to have a special workshop meeting on October 1st at 6 o'clock
Is the motion what Mike said?
at City Hall.
Somebody wanna make that?
Go ahead, Chip. Make your motion.
I can't, it's my daughter's birthday that day, so it's
Oh,
almost,
you
I don't
can't.
need to be accused of.
Making the motion and then
Making
not
the motion.
showing up? Great.
I make a motion that we have a joint session meeting for the DeSoto Comprehensive Plan on October the 1st with the City Council and the Planning Commission. Is that good enough?
If you could specify the 6 p.m. time.
At 6 PM.
Thank you.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. By acclamation, we've approved. Well done. That concludes our agenda, unless there's anything else commissioners would like to discuss. Entertain a
It
motion.
looks like he's thinking about something. No? Okay.
Something inspired by a drive around town, perhaps?
Or while he was
Cutting
out
trees
measuring
or-
trees? What was that you said? You used
Having
to-
retail development in a residential area?
Let's do that.
Oh, gosh. Motion to adjourn.
Moved and seconded. We're adjourned.
Second.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Charles. See you next time.
I don't know if anybody
Has
else.
he just moved to Florida? Isn't here in town?
No, I think he's moved to the soccer field.
Oh.
Yeah, sound like where he's at.
There was an email